Hey everyone, it's Aubrey, recovering perfectionist queen of distraction / gardener. Welcome to the 2024 garden season. I am so excited. If you joined me last year for my weekly garden tour videos, welcome back. I'm happy to have you here. If you are new here, also welcome. If you are new here and you're wondering why I'm posting gardening content, don't worry, my weekly garden tour videos will be on Thursdays. And while this is going to be my weekly Friday video for this week, in the future, I will be posting my regular kind of content on Fridays. So there's going to be a little bit of something for everybody here. There is so much that I want to cover, but this is like the third time I've recorded this and I'm kind of losing my mind at this point trying to touch all the bases. So I think I'm just going to walk around my yard and show you what we've done since we were together last, show you some changes that we've made, show you some changes that we didn't make but are now impacting us. And I guess what I say will be what I say, and I guess sooner or later I will come across all of the thoughts that are churning right now around in my head. Just a quick little bit about us. This is our 5th year gardening, our 3rd year in this garden here. Our 1st year was terrible. 2nd year, last year, was pretty darn good. This year, I'm hoping is going to be even better with changes that we're going to be implementing and some environmental factors that are probably going to be benefiting us at this point. And then let's see, we are in the Pacific Northwest. We are in between zone 8A and 8B. I'd say we're closer to zone 8A. Our last projected frost date for our area is April 19th of this year, which is coming up, and I'm particularly excited about that. Let's see, I've got so many thoughts, but we'll sit here in the greenhouse and talk forever if I don't just get up and show you what's happening. So without further ado, here we go. Alrighty, just quick tour of my really messy greenhouse. I do not plant as much stuff in here as I should. It doesn't hold heat like I want it to, especially at the time of year that I am starting seeds. We need warmer temps. I do not get that in here. And while everything does eventually transition out here as it kind of like acclimates outdoors, it really has just become a very cute garden shed that my husband built. So I think that this is just where we're going to start the garden tour, at the greenhouse. When we built this greenhouse a couple of years ago, I did these rock beds in front, and this lavender is lavender that I started from seed last year, and I'm very proud of it that it actually made it from seed to pot to in the ground, because that was the 3rd or 4th year that I had tried to start lavender from seed. And then over here I just have some echinacea getting some sun that I also started from seed this year. That is also the furthest that I've ever made it with echinacea. I think that this was the 4th or 5th year that I tried starting that by seed. Over here, we've got this ugly water collector tank that we water with when we can. We've got a raspberry bush that we need to fence off again because the deer are back in town. We've got a couple cherry trees that we also need to fence off because the deer are going to eat all the things. And then this bed we added last year just to see how things did in this area of the yard. We did corn and pumpkins in there and they did very well. I would like to add a second bed out here, and then we do have plans for expanding the garden out to this area. I don't know how much we will end up doing this year just because there's only 2 of us, and obviously things cost money sometimes, and there's only so much of that to go around. Another change that if you were with me last year, this was not here, but now it is. This is my husband's office. He started working from home over the winter, and when winter break rolled around, we really started to see how hard it was going to be for the boys to accept the fact that yes, dad is home, but he's working. So Josh built this outdoor space that he has not transitioned into yet. Maybe that will be a video. Let's see, over here, we're going to go check on my rhubarb and see how that's doing. Oh, it's doing so good. Fun fact about that rhubarb, it was my grandpa's. It's been here, I think, longer than our house has even been built here. I think that was one of the first things that we ever planted here, but I've never actually been able to harvest it because somebody always mows it or runs it over, and hopefully this is the year that I get something from it. Also, we've got pallets. We are planning on doing some kind of compost bin closer to the house. Our current compost situation is really just a pile in the yard where we dump our scraps. And so it's not really following like a traditional composting method. So I'm hoping that this year we'll be able to use those to build something, and I like in my mind, I want to say more formal, but I don't think there's anything formal about a compost bin. So that's that. Okay. Another rock flower bed over here. I did these 3 years ago. And right now I've got some peonies in here. My mom and I planted some irises in there. I planted some larkspur seeds in there. I'm hoping that those do well, but I always do sunflowers and those. And then a lot of what ends up coming up is from the first 2 years that I did that. I had just sown wildflower seeds in these 2 beds, and a lot of that ends up coming back. And then this lilac bush, once upon a time, and by once upon a time, I mean like 2 days ago, was right over here, and it really did not get any sun. We've been here on this property for I think this is going to be our 5th year here, and since we've been here, that lilac was here long before us. It has never bloomed, so I'm hoping that now that it has more sun, it will bloom. Oh, also speaking of that right there is also a lilac that we moved from right there. That was one that we had transplanted when we first moved in here, but the spot that we moved it to really didn't get enough sun. It only has bloomed a couple times. So I'm really hoping for a lot of lilacs this year. And now we're here. We're at the garden. Okay, so as we first walk in, you will notice this very tiny arch. I can just barely fit under it. That arch I made with just leftover scraps from that fence that we had made. We had to cut some off to make that work in this space here. And I tried to do black-eyed Susans on this arch last year. It did not work. I'm gonna try nasturtiums there this year, and fingers crossed that will do well. My nasturtiums always do well in any other area of the yard, so I hope that I will get some kind of fun climbing floral action there. And then in this bed here, 2 years ago, this was 4 strawberry plants. Now it is a lot more than that. They have escaped and gone basically everywhere they can go. In this little nook back here, I did just throw some calendula seeds back there just to see what happens. And in this area up here, like we have the inside the garden area and the outside the garden area, normally what I would do is I would do flowers on the outside area. But what my goal is this year, since I'm trying to plant really as much as humanly possible, instead of planting just all of our veggies inside the garden, I'm really trying to prioritize planting as much as I possibly can that is deer resistant outside of the garden. So I think that even though I will still do some flowers on that outer portion of the bed, I'm going to do things like zucchini and cucumber out there, things that the deer and the rabbits don't want. I don't 100% know what I'm going to be doing up here this year. Last year I did do tomatoes, and there were some deer that just stepped right over the fence and ate some of the tomato plants. We still got stuff, but that is something that I'm just gonna have to figure out another day. This bed down here, I added this last year, and I did cabbage along here, and then I did zucchini, and the zucchini did really well. The cabbage, not so much. Last year was my first year trying to grow cabbage seriously. I don't know exactly what went wrong. I do think that me starting them in the plastic pots that I did last year may have hindered them in a way, and I started them in soil blocks this year, which I'm really a fan of, and I did notice a big difference in the quality of start that I was able to get using that method. So that's probably also a topic for another day, but big fan of soil blocking, started that this year. Let's also talk about this arch. This arch wasn't here last year. We had that arch, but not this arch. Basically, I didn't get enough green beans, and I was very disappointed. So I needed another bean arch. So we added this, and so far I have planted some sugar peas along this portion here in this bed. All right, look at that. Look at that soil. We've got some dirt in the ground. Again. Okay. Yeah. And then along this side here, I did just some snap peas, and those ones said that they don't need to climb. So I'm wondering, like, are they just going to fall off the side? Is that how that's going to work? We'll see. Over here is the kale section. This is a very similar situation as last year, where I have kale coming up from the previous year that is about to go to seed. And these over here are actually some babies from the kale that had gone to seed last year. And they actually started down here, and I just dug those up and then moved them in here. And then these back here are some onions that I planted. There was an onion that was sprouting in our pantry that we just decided to put in the garden and see what happened, and it is growing. Also, these are our chives. I transplanted those from the bed that we have off of our porch that is really not any kind of flower bed anymore. It's just a place where the boys play in mud, which I'm okay with. Let's see. As far as the rest of this area, I don't really know what I want to do in there yet. But this, okay, this is kind of my experimentation station right now. Yesterday, I planted 3 lettuce plants from each of the varieties that I'm starting, and I did eggshells around them to protect them from slugs, but then I put these mason jars over them just to kind of protect them at night. They hadn't really spent much time outdoors, so I was kind of nervous leaving them outside without protection, and that seemed to work well. They look just as good as they did yesterday when I covered them up. So I'll probably do that just another couple nights until they acclimate to the outdoor temperatures. Actually, maybe I'll cover up 2, leave 1 out, and see what happens. Does that mean though? I don't know, just like the sacrificial lettuce. In this bed right here, I'm going to do beans along this side of the arch. And then I did plant just a ton of Danver carrots in here. The boys really get down on some carrots. And then over here, just like, I think this was my divider. Boop. I planted some broccoli rabe in there, and that's starting to come up. This is a sad spinach plant from last year that I just kind of tucked back in there just to see what happens. I don't really think much is going to happen. And then over here in these beds, these are my cabbage plants that I tucked out here yesterday. We had put these leaves down in the fall, but I decided to just leave it in here and tuck the cabbage in there. And then like the lettuce, this really only had a couple days to acclimate to the outdoor temperatures, hadn't been out overnight. So I covered it up with that sheet last night, just kind of tucked them into their wee little bed because I was nervous about what would happen to them. I know that cabbage is a cold tolerant vegetable, but my cabbage wasn't used to the outdoors. So I needed to cover it up with a blankie. Beans are going on both sides of these arches realistically. And then this is all garlic that we planted in the fall from, you guessed it, garlic that we had neglected, and it was sprouting in our pantry. So I'm excited to see what happens there. I think this is probably where we'll end up putting our tomatoes, but I haven't figured that out yet. We'll see. Okay, now we're out here. Oh, just kidding. We're going back in, but also a little out. Down here, and then right here, I planted some larkspur, and we're gonna see what happens with that. And then I put some snapdragons there, and then some snapdragons, a bunch more in here, and then kind of along, you can see where I've watered. This rosemary plant is one that I started from seed. She's 4 years old now, but we transplanted that out of a pot. And then I also have this sage plant here that's seen better days. That's also one that I started from seed our first year. So I guess, I don't know, are things 5 years old now? It's hard to keep track of time anymore. I don't know. But that needs to go in the ground as well. And then welcome to our janky brick road. These are a bunch of random bricks from my parents' house. They live across the street, and we wheeled a bunch of these over and made this brick path, and it's fun and very unique. It has a lot of personality. But in this section, like right here, I basically just dumped an entire pack of chamomile seeds, and that's all already coming up. My chamomile had done really so well the first 2 years that we had gardened in our old garden, which I'll show you guys. It's still kind of there, and it still comes back. But I tried growing it in the little beds in front of the greenhouse last year, and I think the year before, and it did not do well at all. So I'm hoping that it does better here. I think a big problem over there is the chickens would end up getting into it, and also the cat. I don't know, it looks like a litter box, I guess. This right here is a grapevine that my aunt gave us like 3 years ago. We finally got around to planting it in the fall, and it was pretty much like the second it got out of the pot, it really started to thrive. So hopefully we will get some grapes. Let's see, over here in this area, what did I do? There were nasturtiums and snapdragons down here. I tried to grow some loofah gourd. I got one like this big. It was basically a dill pickle. We had a couple birdhouse gourds that did really good, but when I brought them into dry, they were drying well, but I didn't have them hanging up. So the bottom of one started to mold. So I moved the other one that wasn't moldy on the bottom out to the garage, thinking like I'll hang it out there and it will be fine. Well, it was too cold out there, so that one molded. So we never got a fully dried birdhouse gourd. My son was very disappointed, but maybe we will have better luck this year. That was our 4th year, or I think our 3rd year trying to grow birdhouse gourds, and we actually got some. So that was something. Still no successful loofah though. I grew some massive sunflowers over here. I did not grow as many sunflowers as I need, and I was very disappointed in myself. So more sunflowers this year. I did cucumbers over here, and yeah, there was really just a lot of snapdragons, but I have some parsley and some bluebell seeds that I popped in there, but there already are a ton of snapdragons that are coming back up from last year, which I'm not disappointed about. And then in this area over here, there was a really big forget-me-not plant that had come up and reseeded itself. So now we've got even more forget-me-nots, which I'm okay with. I love those guys. So more forget-me-nots. Also, sorry about the wind. We're just in a big wind tunnel here, and I do have one of those little fuzzy things that you put on the end of your phone, but I lost it between last garden season and now, so you get what you get. Our 2 blueberry bushes that I almost forgot about. I would like to relocate these to a different spot. They just ended up there, and that's that. Also, this is our wee teepee that my boys and I built out of poplar trees from the backyard. They just come up like weeds, so we cut some of those down. And then my goal for this is to, I always want to say a bean teepee, but if I was going to do a bean teepee, I need to do a bean teepee in the garden because the deer will get anything out here. I do have a bunch of vining flower seeds that I want to try and grow on that this year. I just need to figure out what I'm going to do for, like, how am I going to plant those. I imagine planting them and like sticking the legs of the teepee in like a window flower box, but then I have to buy a bunch of window flower boxes, and I'm really trying hard not to buy a bunch of garden things that I don't necessarily need. Let's see, we are going to go out here and we're going to talk about the chickens. This is a chicken coop, not really garden related. Where are the babies? I'll have to see if I can get videos of the babies. They might already have tucked themselves in for the day. Okay, so this is a big change. Over there is the parcel next to our property that we used to own but sold. It used to have our old garden on it, but now it doesn't. Anyway, over the weekend they cut down like 20 trees so they have a space to build their house, and it has let in so much light. All of those trees were trees that would block like the end of daylight for us, so pretty much anything after like 4 o'clock we're in the shade for the most part. So it's going to let in so much more light for the garden, which is wonderful. I just think that after a hot summer day I might miss my shade, but it's kind of nice. I'll also have to see if I can find like a before clip to show a before and after, because the change is just it's wild. This is my garden line that the trees grew, and now we need to move those down so I can actually reach the clothesline, because that is one of my favorite hobbies during the summer, is to hang our clothes outside. Let's see, over here there were 2 really big stumps in the ground covered by blackberries. We cleared all that. And then, you see that really big excavator? Yeah, our very kind neighbor came over and smashed up the 2 really big stumps for us, loaded as much as he could into our trailer so we can get rid of those, and then broke up the other one, so hopefully we can just deal with that here. But this was once upon a time our compost pile, like I said, where we just dump our scraps. So I'm excited to have some kind of actual compost system. All right, sorry. I feel like it's rude to wear sunglasses, like we can't make eye contact, not that we're actually doing that, but it's blinding me and I don't want to get a headache. Okay, we are going over to our apple trees. So these we planted in the fall. We had bought them last spring, and I have my little satchel of Irish Spring soap in here, which is disgusting, to deter the deer. But you can see right there, like the perimeter of our old garden, and it's just like this corner right there is all that was left on our property line, so we had to move the garden. Let's see, our other apple tree. We want to get more fruit trees here. It's just so hard to keep things alive when there's so many dang deer around just trying to gobble everything up. And I love the deer and I think they're beautiful, and do I want to be Snow White? You bet I do, but they're just trying to eat everything. So I have mixed feelings about them. We're just doing what we can to still welcome them into our yard because it's fun for the kids to see them, but then also, actually get fruit from our fruit trees and our raspberry bushes and all that jazz. So that's what I have to say about the deer. Oh, also that area where those stumps are, Josh and I were talking about, once it's cleared and leveled and whatnot, starting a cut flower garden. Wouldn't that be fun? We're also talking about like a pumpkin patch because there's no pumpkin patch in our area. But also I think like, where would people park? Is there such thing as a mini pumpkin patch? I don't know. So many ideas and so little time, so little brain power. So, okay. Let's just sit down and we're going to talk for a minute. Well, I feel like I've talked about as much as I can talk about. There are a lot of things that have happened as I've started seeds over the course of the last couple months that I wish I would have shared. But it also feels really irrelevant to talk about right now. So, I mean, if all that comes up, it will come up. But that's just maybe stuff that we'll have to talk about next year. I guess that's all for the first garden tour of the year. I don't know exactly when I'll start my weekly garden tours. There really just isn't a ton that has happened. So maybe next week, but also maybe not next week. We're just gonna have to wait and see how this goes. But I would be happy if you would join me for the garden season. And you can subscribe or you cannot. It's your choice. I'm not your mom. I can't tell you what to do. But I do appreciate you taking a chunk out of your day to hang out with me in the garden. And I hope to see you next time. As always, I love you. Have fun and be kind.